Disclaimer: I am not an electrician. You do these own modifications at your own risk. Keep in mind there is high voltage involved. Always make sure to unplug the machine when working on it. Safety first. The DeLonghi ECP series is a good, low-cost espresso machine that retails for around $200 Canadian. However, if you browse some used markets, you can find it for as low as about $25 or $30. In its unaltered state, it can make a fairly good B-tier espresso shot. There are some cheap modifications one can make, such as using a bottomless portafilter and removing the Panarello-style wand to enhance the quality of your shot. However, the main flaw that the ECP series faces is the inability to control the brewing temperature or water pressure, which can lead to mediocre, inconsistent shots. However, what if we could easily add these features to our machine? Introducing the Gaggimate. This is a mod designed for the Gaggio Classic product line that can be easily adapted to the ECP to bring it from B tier to a good solid S- tier. The Gaggimate has temperature control via PID, as well as pressure control in the Pro version. This video will serve as a guide to help you install a Gaggimate into your ECP. I will be using the DeLonghi ECP guide located on the Gaggimate website as a basis for this installation, with just a few minor tweaks. First, let's go through a material list on the Gaggimate website. It is highly recommended that you buy the parts listed on this guide as they've been tested to work on this mod. Firstly, you'll need the Gaggimate Pro PCB. Next, you'll either have to buy a 2.1 inch or 2.8 inch screen. The two compatible manufacturers are LilyGo and Waveshare. For this guide, I will be focusing on the LilyGo screens. The 2.8 inch screen costs a bit more, but I personally find the larger screen worth it. You will also need a solid-state relay or SSR. This is an important device that allows the Gaggimate to turn the heater on and off in your machine. A K-type ungrounded thermocouple is also needed. Make sure it has a 6mm opening in order for it to fit on the ECP boiler. You will need both 22 gauge and 18 gauge silicone wire. It must be silicone as regular wire is not rated for the temperature that the wire will experience. We will need to buy spade and ring or fork connectors. However, there is a crimp tool that comes with all these connectors that I'll be discussing later on, so I would just recommend getting this crimp tool instead. You will need both the 3-pin and 2-pin JST connectors. I strongly recommend these alternative ones that have wires already attached. The following 5 items, located here, are all the fittings and tubings you'll need to purchase in order to plumb the pressure sensor into the ECP. Make sure to get the exact pieces mentioned in the guide, as there's many different variations and you need very specific pieces. Lastly, if you live in North America, you may wish to get a 3-prong electrical cord in order to make your ECP grounded. More on this later. As for tools, firstly you'll need the aforementioned crimper that comes with a bunch of connectors. You also need wire strippers that can strip wires from around 18 to approximately 26 gauge. You'll need some needle nose pliers, double-sided tape, and an assortment of screwdrivers. In particular, you'll need a security torque screwdriver, a T20. I also recommend a multimeter and a soldering iron as well. You also need thermal paste for the thermocouple. However, my SSR came with some. I should also mention you're also going to need some Waco electrical connectors for the wiring of the high voltage. I strongly recommend buying brand name Waco connectors. In this guide, I will be using the 2 connectors as well as the 3 connectors. You will need to 3D print a holder for your screen. The 2.1 inch LilyGo or Waveshare screens have a wonderful 3D print design by TorqueFighter that replaces the front plate of the ECP. It's a very sleek, modern design and a lot of people like its look. If you're going for the 2.8 inch LilyGo screen, only the LilyGo screen, then you can go for this screen holder here, which utilizes the original front plate. On top of the 3D prints you need for your screens, you're also going to need a 3D print to potentially house the Gaggimate and SSR unit. These 3D prints are known as backpacks. You don't necessarily need a backpack, as you can theoretically mount the Gaggimate and the SSR internally inside the machine. However, this can be a bit difficult, so I personally recommend the backpack option. Before doing any disassembly or building of the DeLonghi ECP modifications, It is recommended that you flash the Gaggimate and the display screen. You can follow the step-by-step steps here on the Gaggimate documentation section of the Gaggimate website. You will need to use a browser such as Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, as Firefox does not work for flashing ESP32 modules. First, let's start disassembling the machine. The first step is to remove the faceplate. First, you're going to need to remove the rotary switch as well as the steam control valve. Make sure to not lose the spring. Next, we're going to remove the screws holding the rotary switch into the faceplate. Now, we're going to remove the two screws that are located under the faceplate. I recommend using a stubby screwdriver to do this. Now you should be able to slide the faceplate forward about 1/4 inch and then lift it off. Careful, as there will still be some wires attached to it. You may need to use a flat screwdriver to assist you. With the faceplate removed, you're going to have to remove the plastic shroud. This is done by unscrewing two screws located here. You'll then need to push in two clips in the rear of the machine and then pull the plastic shroud off. in order to help remove the faceplate and plastic shroud, we're going to have to remove some wires. First, I would remove the wires attached to the rotary switch. For reference, the blue wire is the live wire that goes all the way down to the live prong on your power cord. The brown cable is the pump control. The LEDs can also be pulled off the front page at this stage as well. We will not be using the LEDs in this mod. You can also remove the white cable ties at this stage. With the plastic shroud and front panel removed, we can focus on removing unneeded wires. First, remove all the connectors on the old thermocouple. The gray wire will not be used in this mod and can be disposed of. The other connectors can be disconnected as well. It should be noted at this stage we are at the point of no return. The next modification will make it very difficult to get the machine back to its factory default settings, so make sure you're committed to doing this mod. First, cut the red wire that comes from the boiler at this connector. You can do this for both of the red wires coming off of the boiler. Be wary that one of the red wire has a thermal fuse, seen here. It is important to not disturb this thermal fuse as it is an important safety feature. All these remaining black wires will be replaced in this mod, so for now you can just leave them to the side. We are now going to remove the base of the espresso machine. To do that, we need to remove 5 Torx T20 screws. To do that, you're going to need to use a screw bit. Now with my screwdriver, it's a bit too large to fit into some of the holes. So I had to partially put the bit in and then kind of have the screwdriver partially on in order to unscrew it. You might have better luck with your screwdrivers. I should mention at this point that I am doing one slight modification from this image on the official ECP guide. On the pump, there is a piggyback connector, which connects the neutral line to the pump. It also allows a connection to some of the LEDs that we've already removed, or will be removing. So the difference I will be making is I'm only going to be using a 3 connector Wago instead of this 5 connector, because by reusing the piggyback connector you don't actually have to use approximately 2 of these. The piggyback connector is removed from the pump using needle nose pliers. This can be a bit challenging to do and it may take a few attempts. Do not unplug the brown cable. We're only unplugging the black cable here. With the piggyback connector removed, we can remove the white connector that's attached to it. This white connector is connected to some LEDs, which we can remove at a later time. It's important to note that there's two wires here. One of the wires we do not want to cut, which is this one right here, which connects to the connector block, which eventually goes to your power cord. Do not cut that. The other wire that's attached must be removed, which you'll see here shortly. Take some scissors and cut as close as you can to this cable that we don't want. And again, that cable can be removed from the machine. So this is what the piggyback connector should have looked like. You need to make a new neutral cable, approximately 12 inches long, that will connect into this piggyback connector. This cable will be fished up to the top of the machine and will provide the neutral connection to the power cord. Using needle nose pliers, it's time to reinsert the piggyback connector into the pump. Make sure you hold the bottom of the pump while you do this. It's now time to drill a hole in the back of the machine where all of our cables will eventually go into the backpack. I recommend a 1/2 inch hole here. You should also place the hole on this side of the ECP. You do not want to be drilling a hole in the side where the water bucket is. Make sure you do not damage the pump or the cables in behind when you're drilling. This hole will have sharp edges, and so it is recommended to use a rubber grommet here in order to protect the cables as they pass through the hole. However, I don't have a rubber grommet, so instead I decided to deburr and file down the edges of the hole to make it smooth. You can now install the Gaggimate into the backpack. With this particular model, you can only insert the Gaggimate in one particular way. I don't know exactly what screw works best for this model. I just found some screws that would fit, and I screwed it in securely. Line up the backpack to determine where you're going to have to drill some holes to attach the backpack. I use M2 x 8mm screws to insert the backpack onto the back of the machine. Here's what mine look like after it has been attached. You could use up to 3 screws. It is now time to install the SSR. I strongly recommend that you install the SSR with the high voltage AC end at the top of the backpack. So this particular orientation shown here. Make sure to screw it down securely. The next few minutes we will be actually wiring the SSR. First, take the red wire that is attached to the thermal fuse coming off the boiler and fish that wire through the hole we just made. It should just barely fit. You're going to want to crimp either a hook or a circular hoop connector at the end of it. Make sure to screw the hoop underneath this metal bracket. The hoop is going to have to be perpendicular to the actual SSR as shown here. Make sure it's a firm connection. The other side of the SSR needs to be connected to live. So create a short wire that's going to go from the live Wago that we previously set up. And again, fish this wire through the hole and crimp a hoop or hook connector on the other end and screw it into the other hole on the SSR. We're now going to make a cable that connects the control side of the SSR, or the low voltage side. It's very important you realize that this is polarized. The right side is positive, the left side is negative. I've already made a cable here using silicone wire of 22 gauge. I've put hoop connectors on either end. And on the other side, I've attached a 3-pin JST-PH 2.0 connector. Make sure the red wire is in the center, the black wire is on the right side. There will be nothing connected on the left hole. Notice how that keyed notch is on the front here. Again, these cables are polarized. So this red cable, which is my positive end, is going to go in the positive side of the control side of the SSR, shown here. And then we're going to attach the black or negative wire to the left side. Make sure you do not mix this up. The cable was made by splicing some silicone wire with a JST connector. I decided to solder this splice because it is a low voltage signal. We can then connect the JST connector into the Gaggimate. It goes into the metal slot. Again, the ground wire should be at the bottom from this perspective. The red should be in the middle, and the left hole should be empty, as you can see here. If your SSR came with a plastic cover, you should probably insert it now. It is now time to connect the live and neutral wires to the Gaggimate. So I've created two approximately 7 to 8 inch wires, and I've taken off about 1 centimeter of insulation on either side. This is the live wire, and it's going to go into the last hole of the live Wago, where they're going to push that wire through the hole and connect it to the connector where there's an L, which is the far left hole on the Gaggimate. To insert, you will need to push the orange tab down as you push the wire in. You should always check to make sure it's made a good connection by gently trying to tug it out. It shouldn't come out with a gentle tug. We're going to do this again, but now for the neutral cable. So connect a neutral wire to the neutral Wago that we previously have set up, and then connect that to the neutral connector on the Gaggimate, which is represented by a capital N. It will be the hole just to the right of the live one that we just hooked up. At this time, we might as well also hook up the pump control wire. I'm going to cut the white connector off with some scissors. And then I'm going to strip again about a centimeter of insulation off. And I'm going to push this wire through the hole and connect it to the pump connector on the Gaggimate, which is the fourth hole on the Gaggimate. The third hole, which is represented by a capital V, is the valve control. We will not be using that with the ECP. I do not have extra plumbing, so I can't show a live demonstration of installing the tubing and pressure transducer. However, you can see from our machine how I have done it. Follow the DeLonghi Gaggimate guide for step-by-step instructions. In short, you need to cut the current tube cleanly with a sharp knife, about 1 to 2 inches from the pump. Insert a T-junction here. Then, attach a 4-inch tube on the remaining point of the T-junction. Attach the 90-degree pressure fitting at the other end. You should fill this tube with some water and then install the pressure transducer to this 4-inch cable. Leaks are common. When you finally test the machine, you need to check each connection point for leaks. If a leak is found, try reseating the tube. The transducer cables can be fed through the hole of the machine into the backpack. Look at the following color-coded image as a guide of where to install the wiring of the transducer into the Gaggimate. Let's now remove the thermocouple from the Gaggimate. To do that, you're going to have to unscrew this nut here. Do not lose the nut or the washers. We will be reusing them. The old thermocouples can be thrown out at this stage. We need to clean off the old thermal paste. I try to wipe off as much as possible with some paper towel, and then I followed up with cleaning it with 99% isopropanol. 70% would also probably work too. Make sure you remove all of the thermal paste. It is time to add some thermal paste to the boiler. Make sure you use a generous amount around the bolt. The idea of the thermal paste is so that we make a good connection between the thermocouple and the boiler without any air gaps. Attach the thermocouple to the bolt and then connect it down with some additional washers as well as that nut. Do not over tighten that nut or you could damage the thermocouple. Depending on your thermocouple, you may have to cut the end connectors off and strip a bit of wire, approximately 1 centimeter. Insert them into the Gaggimate, specifically in these metal connectors. The blue wire goes on the left-hand side and the red one goes on the right-hand side. This can be a bit tricky to insert, so make sure that it is actually fully inserted. Again, using 22 gauge silicone wire, we're going to be making a long wire that will connect the screen to the Gaggimate. One side is a JST 2-pin connector, which I have spliced again by soldering. And on the other end, we have a 4-pin JST PAP connector. It's important that you remove the other 2 wires as they're not going to be needed. Make sure the connector works by trying to plug it into the screen. I had a little bit of difficulty myself, but eventually got it to work. Again, red is your positive or 3.3 volts, and black is your ground or negative. The connector, the 2-pin connector, will connect to the bottom of the Gaggimate board. Notice how my screen is the half circle version. I did not buy the full circle version, and because of that, it doesn't quite fit properly. So I have made a buffer ring, which we'll see soon. First, put the 4-pin connector through the hole of this little mount, and then connect that to the screen, and then insert the screen into this little mount. The screen is then going to go through the mount like that, but I have this little adapter ring again because I accidentally brought the wrong type of screen. Bit of a pain to do, but you're going to push it in, and then you're just going to use some screws to screw the whole thing together. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's now time to do our first test. Here we're just going to see if it electrically works. We plug it in and the Gaggimate screen turns on. What we're going to end up doing is we're first going to see if we actually can get the boiler to heat up, and then we're going to do a water pressure test. Now this Gaggimate currently does not have any plumbing put into it, so I can't actually test the water. But you should be doing that yourself. You should actually run a brew and you should see if any water leaks out of the pipes. And if it does, you're going to have to either reseat the connectors or cut new cables, depending on what went wrong. Right now you can see that the heater is starting to heat up. Just ignore the fact that the temperature reading is incorrect. That's because on this screen I have a very high temperature offset set. In reality, it's closer to 20 degrees right now. And it's clearly heating up. I will actually unplug the unit and I will put my finger on the boiler to ensure that it is actually warm. Careful, don't burn yourself. Let's check to make sure the pump is working fine and that there are no water leaks. So I'm going to insert some water into the unit. Reminder, if you're ever touching anything internally inside of this ECP, that the unit should be unplugged. Once you have successfully tested the machine, it's time to now reinstall the plastic shroud and the faceplate. Take the screen wire and push it through the hole in the plastic shroud, and then attach the plastic shroud back to the Gaggimate. This can take a bit of finagling to do. We now grab the screen mount and we are going to fish the cable through the screen mount hole and then attach it to the screen. Notice how I'm making a mistake right here, and I realize in a few seconds that I need to put it through the hole first. Make sure to insert the 2 screws into the plastic housing, and then you can actually flip the front panel back onto the plastic housing. Insert the 2 screws from the bottom to secure the front panel to the plastic housing. We're now going to put the backpack lid on. It should clip on. Don't forget to insert 4 screws to secure the backpack lid tightly onto the backpack. If you have a North American ECP, it is strongly recommended that you ground the boiler. Grounding is an important safety technique that can help prevent accidental electrocution in the event that internal wires come loose. To ground the DeLonghi, you will need a 3-foot or longer 3-prong cable. You can cut one from a good quality power strip. I will personally not be grounding this DeLonghi due to not having this extra power cord. Unscrew the old cable from the connector block. Screw the live wire of the new power cord to the live side of the power block, aka the blue cable. Screw the neutral end of the power cord to the neutral end of the connector block. The grounded cable can now be installed in the center connection point of this connector block. Make sure all wires are firmly connected. Make a 12-inch 18-gauge silicone wire and attach one end to the other side of the connector block. Fish the wire up to the top of the machine. Crimp a circular or fork connector to this wire. Then screw the hoop connector tightly to the grounding point of the boiler. You'll need a M4x8 screw to do this. Make sure the power cord is tightly twisted around this anti-snag point of the base of the unit. This helps prevent the internal power cables coming loose in case of an accidental yank on the power cord. Attach the base of this unit and reinsert the screws. Here is the completed DeLonghi next to my other fully functional machine. This image may also give you an idea about whether you would rather have the 2.1-inch screen or the 2.8-inch screen. Notice that on the machine on the left, I have removed the Panarello wand and left behind the plastic nozzle. I attach a tie wrap to firmly secure the plastic nozzle. By doing this, you improve the steaming capability without having to do additional, more expensive mods to the machine. All in all, this modification will cost you around $200 to $300 Canadian all in, to make an espresso machine that can easily compete with machines 5 to 6 times its cost. With that said, a good quality grinder is more important than the machine itself, and as such, you should invest in one. I would like to thank the Gaggimate developers and the members of the Gaggimate Discord server for all the help in making this amazing mod work. In a future video, I will explore how to play around with the software side of the Gaggimate to make it work better for the DeLonghi. If you have any questions during your build, connect with the Gaggimate Discord that is linked in the guide and down in the video description. Happy brewing!